Well, good morning. My name is Ed Condon. I'm the Executive Director with the Region 9 Head Start Association. I'm so appreciative of your time this morning and the time of our partners in this new program that we are launching here in the association in 23-24, and with great hope and expectation that it brings all of you resources that really support your workforce, your agencies. As we know in Head Start, of course, our workforce has been struggling. We have had so many issues as we've come out of COVID, both their wellness and also our competitiveness, providing salaries and benefits. We're excited to see a new resource come to the table that addresses just that. As many of you know, we've been working with this team for the last few years in a separate activity to really build up our scholarship offerings for our community. Thousands of dollars have been raised and distributed over the past few years, thanks to George Frazier and his commitment to our Head Start community. Today, you're going to hear from a number of individuals, but in particular, Mitch Haber from Voya, who's going to lead this conversation on our new offering of the Head Start Retirement Program. So with thanks and appreciation to Mitch and the team he has put together, Mitch, please take it away, and good
Great.
morning to all who are here.
Thank you, Ed. Pleasure to be with everybody. This is Mitch Haber. I'm actually in Los Angeles, California. And I thought I would do a few things today. The objective of the call is to introduce a new program created specifically for Head Start members. We're going to identify what that is, how it works, why we'll give you a lot of the why it was created, and I'm going to introduce a couple professionals and colleagues of mine that have been part of this journey as well. But I thought I would begin with a story of how this all began. And as Ed pointed out, George Frazier was one of the champions of the scholarship program. And over the past 5 or 6 years, this program has really generated, I call it a professional highlight for me, for somebody that's done retirement plans for most of my life, and I know for George as well. This program has served families, maybe generational in its structure, and we've awarded over 100 scholarships. This is a list of the last year's members, and there's George on stage introducing a few people, and I was able to get in a nice little candid shot with Ed in Hawaii. Now, my background is Hawaii-oriented, Ed, and so I thought in the spirit of the upcoming conference in October, I would showcase a little of that. So that's kind of how this journey began with Head Start. Full disclosure, I'm a graduated teacher. I come from a family of educators. I went to college because I thought I was going to teach as well, so my fondness and affection for educators is really quite genuine. But what happened after the scholarship program began with George's inspiration was we wanted to come up with a way, what else could we do to support the Head Start community in our own profession? And I want to share a couple real stories that exist in the Head Start community that I've learned. I'm not going to name names. I'm going to give you flavor of experiences that we had from a retirement plan perspective. Now, I've got a question for everybody. You can answer it or not. I'm going to guess that if you are involved in running a retirement plan, that is not the only job that you have at your facility. So if you wouldn't mind putting into the chat a yes or no. If the only job that you have in your Head Start community and facility is running the retirement plan, give me a yes or no. And I'm guessing the answer is probably no. You probably juggle a lot of different things. So so just put a quick chat, give me a yes or no, and it'll help me understand. But regardless, I know everybody's juggling a lot of different things. So that was one of the whys we created the Head Start Retirement Program, because we know that the job of a human resources person, a benefits director, even executive directors, you're juggling many different things. So what could we do? What could George and I do in the creation of a program to make your job better and actually alleviate some of those duties? But let me share with you what I've learned over the past several years. One of the chapters with their retirement plan sent out a proposal request. We call it an RFP. It was over 36 pages long. It had over 300 questions in it. It was sent out to the vendor community. After several months, the Head Start chapter sent a message out and said, hey, we're having trouble dissecting and understanding the answers to these questions. We're going to resend this. We're going to send it out in 3 pages with 36 questions. And we answered it along with other people. Even as a result of that, through that process, at the end of that process, the clarity of what they ended up with, the cost of what they ended up with, the services that they ended up with was really not what they thought. So lesson number 1 for me was stay in your lane, do what you do well, and running a retirement plan probably isn't at the top of your list. So that was scenario number 1. Scenario number 2, and again, this is why we created the program, because we wanted to remove those duties and those responsibilities that currently fall upon you and answer the question, is there a better way? And the answer is there is. Scenario number 2, we met a Head Start chapter, happened to be in California. And with retirement plans, you have to do annual taxes and audits if you're above a certain size. And in our lessons learned as we meet different chapters, we have learned that this particular entity has never filed a tax return ever and has never done an audit ever. Now, it's wrong. They did. Did they do it intentionally? They didn't. But yet another example of a burden put upon, people in your capacity, and how can we address some things like that? The last story I'm going to give you was a chapter that I was at. I was at an event at UCLA, and this was actually a couple months ago. At that event, there was a room of plan sponsors. One of them was a Head Start benefits director. I recognized her, and this was the question to a room of about 20 people that did the same job. What's the one thing you don't like about your retirement plan? One thing. This person raises her hand proudly and says, quote, I hate, H-A-T-E, strong word, I hate the audit. And I'm like, So those are my 3 stories of examples, and I have many more, of lessons learned from Head Start chapters on things that you currently have to do to run a retirement program. So what can we do about that? And the answer is we created the Head Start retirement program. So I'm going to introduce a colleague of mine. His name is Brody Wood, and I'm going to have Brody take over the screen, and we're going to run a little story about Head Start. And Brody runs the national, he's the national practice leader at Voya, my employer. And Brody, why don't you take it away and share some things?
Well, I thought I'd contrast Mitch's hanging out on the beach with some cold snow. And thanks for a few minutes today. And I appreciate all that you do. You make a big difference in the lives of so many people. So if you move forward just a bit, maybe you wanted to take a second to explain 5 or 10 minutes worth of background on what this program is and maybe the benefits of this program. So if you think about all the different Head Start entities around the region, and by bringing those together in some type of pooled program, we're going to be able to reduce some costs and really hopefully streamline and reduce the administrative headache or work that goes into running a program. And so with this pooled employer program, it would allow you to avoid some of those things. There's something, the first thing I want to talk about is, why is this an opportunity today versus yesterday? It's something called the Secure Act 2.0. And Secure Act was a piece of legislation that was passed recently that allowed your retirement programs, whether it be 401ks or 403bs, to join together in building a program like this. And as part of it, it allows you to avoid some extra extra hurdles and liabilities. So let's go to the chart there, Mitch, that kind of talks about that.
Okay.
So today, if you think about running your own individual plan, there's a number of different duties. If you look in the column there in the middle where it says single employer plan, you're kind of on the responsible to monitor who you work with, you know, the providers that provide the retirement program, that provide the statements and the website, the investments, working with advisors to monitor that, reviewing the investments periodically. There's some people might be familiar with filing a 5500. That's something you have to do every year. And depending upon the size of your plan, paying for and having a plan audit done, having a plan document, doing notices, all of these things are requirements for an individual program. If you look to the right, this pool program that we're rolling out really eliminates a lot of those individual duties. So going forward, you're no longer needing to file a 5500. You're no longer needing to pay for an individual plan audit. You're not on your own trying to figure out the plan document and reviewing the investments in that. That's all built into this program. So I guess at a high level, a lot of things you do today individually, and each of you are all doing the same things on your own, it would be bringing that together and having that built into the program. If you'll click forward, let me just mention a couple more things before I might
Sure.
maybe turn it back over. The reason why we're rolling this out with you all is at Voya, your mission is really important to us. And we have a tremendous amount of experience with working with nonprofit organizations like yours. In fact, we administer more retirement programs for nonprofits than any other provider. So what you do is important to us, and we're just excited to partner in that regards. So as you think about some of these duties that you're doing on your own, and we can certainly take some questions once we get through some of this. I really think there's going to be some ways for you to reduce the amount of time that you're dealing with these headaches on your own, and maybe some expertise that will be built into the program that will automate some of those things for you. So
Great.
with that, Mitch, I'll
Yep.
turn it to you.
Thank you, Brody. A couple thoughts and concept as you think about it. Think about your retirement program that you have today. We're not suggesting that you take that away. That's not what this is about. This is about eliminating and alleviating some of the legal and financial and fiduciary duties that fall upon your shoulders today, and literally outsourcing that to a professional. And really, as Brody indicated, what's changed is for the first time in a tax-exempt community, we can pool the program and pool the assets of the Head Start community. Now think about that. Just in Region 9 alone, there's over 200 entities that have a retirement plan.
Wow.
The plans are scattered in the community. And when we presented the idea to the board that there was a better way that could benefit the Head Start family, the board wasn't in, they were all in, and some very enthusiastic members of the board said, let's go. Because the concept is there's so much horsepower in the Head Start family, and we said, how can we help pull that together? The concept of pooling and bringing this together was really the genesis behind that. And oh, by the way, all these things that you have to worry about in doing and running a plan, no one in the chat said their only job was to run the retirement program. We know that. We know that. So the program was designed to alleviate and eliminate the ongoing responsibility of running the program. It doesn't mean the program's going away. We're just shifting the burden of running the program to something else. And so I think that's a good segue. And by the way, if you have questions, just pop them in the chat. This is more information sharing and introduction sharing. And Ed made this public, Ed and Lindsay made this public last night on LinkedIn when they announced the creation of this program. So thank you both for doing that. So those are a lot of the whys we started it. Now, one thing that you are going to let go of, which all of you are now right today, is you are all the legal plan sponsor of the program. Well, in a pooled program, you're no longer going to be the plan sponsor. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a vote. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a say in the design of the plan. It doesn't mean you're not going to have input, but you're no longer going to be the plan sponsor. Somebody else is. And so with that, I thought I would introduce your new plan sponsor of the Head Start pooled retirement program, and that is Pete Swisher. So Pete, let me leave that as kind of an intro to you, and you can take away and share some of your duties and responsibilities in this program.
Thanks, Mitch. So, you gave a couple great stories, and, in the example of somebody who didn't file a return, it's called a Form 5500. Many of you are familiar with it. There's a really terrible large penalty that goes with not filing it. There are ways of getting relief, but you have to have a lawyer to fix it. And that's a problem that goes away. And there would only be one of those for the entire plan, and I would sign it. And my firm is called GPS Group Plan Systems. We're a professional fiduciary. My partner is a lawyer, specializes in securities law and ERISA retirement plan law. And we have a group of experts and people who have done record keeping administration. So if you think about the position you're put in a very difficult position as an HR person or someone who's running a retirement plan. And we've been talking about these duties, but let me tell you where they come from. They come from a legal document that's about 200 pages long. And typically you're signing your name on it. It says you're a fiduciary, you're an administrator, you have these duties. And the word administrator appears in that document about 300 times. We have a knowledge base at GPS of about 400 overall duties that you have. Well, you don't want 400 duties. You don't want 5 duties. You don't want any duties. And it's just a tough place to be. Of what even are they? Because you're not provided with the list. And most of it's nitpicky. Most of it is going to go just fine. But there are about 70 things that go wrong all the time. And so what you want, I think, when you're an employer, is you want somebody paying attention, somebody who knows what those requirements are and pays attention to say, hey, how is this getting done? Does it work well at the service provider? And what's the employer's job and what help do they need? And that's what my firm does. We are the professional fiduciary who pays attention to things and asks questions like, hey, the 5500s do we have everything we need? There was a mention of the audit. There's still an audit in this plan, and that's a good thing. You have an independent, qualified public accountant overseeing that the money's there, that there's no funny business going on, and that the math is right. And so that's a benefit, but it's a cost and a hassle for the typical single employer. Well, we're just going to do one for the whole plan. So the individual cost and burden for any one of you is going to plummet with respect to the audit if history is any guide. And I've been personally doing multiple employer plans for about 15 years, and one of the major advantages is the audit. So think of us as the independent fiduciary who is sitting on top of that 200-page document, named in that document, so you don't have to be, so you don't have to know what those 400 to-do items are, and so you're not the one responsible for them. You're still going to have some, but you're going to know what they are. There are going to be things like payroll and contributions and so forth. You will know exactly what your duties are because we'll put them in the contract and we'll explicitly say we're responsible for everything else. So again, I don't want to make that sound like you have no work. You're still going to have work, but we'll do our best to make sure that you know what it is and how to do it right, and we give you the help you need to do it.
Hey, Pete, how about the genesis of this pooled concept? Maybe a little history lesson for the group. And by the way, if you have a 401k program or you have a 403b, the concept and the idea of pooling is what we're bringing to the Head Start family as well. But Pete, I think a good question is, how did this idea begin? And because by the way, everyone, Pete is one of the I call him the godfather of these programs. So not to give away your age, Pete, but you do have a deep history in this. So I think that would be interesting on the creation of these things.
I am a new grandfather.
I
have a 6-month-old grandbaby. So
maybe you are old, Pete.
these things have been around actually a long time. And back when there were no retirement plans to speak of, back in the 1930s and 40s, 20s even, the first efforts at putting these things together sometimes used exactly this concept. You had groups come together and say, hey, we'd really like to offer some kind of a retirement program. We need some experts to do that for us. And so you'd have organizations like a group of banks or an agricultural cooperative, or credit unions or rural electric cooperatives, and they would come together and say, hey, we're creating this thing. We don't know how to do it. We'll put it together. So there are examples like that that have been around for many, many decades and been very successful, have billions of dollars of assets in them, have joint purchasing power with those billions. So if you take your little plan and put it in a big plan, you gain that purchasing power of those people. But you couldn't do this unless you met specific requirements. And so something that Brody pointed out a minute ago is that the law just changed. It changed a year ago, and now we can do this in a 403B, and we can do it on a fairly open basis. So the door's been opened to share this structure. It's been a kind of a major push in Congress to improve the retirement system and close coverage gaps. There are people who don't have access to a plan. So in this country, we want to fix that. And Congress has adopted multiple employer plans as a way to do that. So this is called a pooled employer plan, or PEP. And it's a form of multiple employer plan. But the idea is it's just one plan that you plug into instead of having to do everything yourself.
So Pete, how about this question? Design flexibility at the individual level. Is there design flexibility, and can we address some issues with turnover, and can we use the program to inspire people to stick around? And do you view this as an object and a tool to do that with?
Plenty of flexibility. Everything that you should want to do, you'll be able to do. There are certain things you might think you want to do that we will tell you that we're not going to let. So there are plan provisions that are problematic, like custom definitions of compensation that people don't know not to do. Well, we're going to screen some things out. So part of what will happen is a preparation process where we go through the plan document you currently have and make sure that it will all translate. There will be some differences, and we'll let you know what they are. But it's very rare these days that anybody has a provision that they can't keep all the things that are important to them that they give to their employees.
So Pete, on that same line, I feel like I'm interviewing you, but I think this is just truly valuable for the Head Start family is, and not to get into the sausage making, but there's something that on the slide that says 316 plan administration. I'm guessing that isn't very common in the Head Start community. Would you mind talking about the concept of that and what that means and why that would be of value for, any of the Head Start members?
Yeah, a lot of services in the retirement business have been hanging that number as a marketing tool on what they offer. And it can be misleading. So, but what it means legally is the plan administrator. And, capital T, capital P, capital A, the plan administrator. It's the one party responsible for operating this document, this plan, in accordance with its terms, all 200 pages of it. And I say 200, it varies, of course, but it's the party named as the plan administrator. So when the word administrator appears 300 times in that document, which it does, this is the party it's calling upon to do something. And it's a fiduciary role, it's a legal role, it's a buck stops here role.
Got it. And the benefit to, an individual Head Start entity is they're no longer legally responsible for making sure the plans run right? Somebody else is.
Exactly.
Okay. I want to be tight with our time. Pete, that was terrific. Thank you for your background. Thank you for being the sponsor. Actually, the scenarios that I just described on the examples that I had, Pete's going to own the responsibility of that. And so going forward, if you decide to join this, the ownership of doing it right is going to fall onto a professional like Pete. While we're on this slide, I want to identify the parties involved that have created this. In the middle, you see the Fraser Group. And so on the investment piece, what investments are there in the program? And so again, that is an outsourced service. that is done by a professional. In this case, it's George and his longstanding relationship with Head Start, and it allows him to kind of have an active say. Let me throw this out. If you currently work with an advisor that you have a great partnership and a relationship with, the idea of this program is not to disrupt or to disturb that. The idea of this program is to complement what you're doing, take you out of the responsibility business and doing it right, and creating a program where the horsepower of Head Start is coming together as one. So that's the Fraser Group's role in the middle there. And then I work for Voya. We're the engine that makes it go from the payroll data. Really, at the end of the day, that your duty is going to be to make sure that the money flows in, the money flows out, and then everything else is going to fall on group plan systems shoulders, Pete and his team, and then Voya from a record keeping perspective, website, bilingual capabilities, educational needs. I've had a story. I met a young lady who's the benefits director at a chapter in California. Very poor participation, 25%, and a lot of bilingual needs, and just carries the burden of the responsibility of the program on her shoulders and really had nowhere else to go. And so we introduced the concept of outsourcing a lot of that. And I could almost feel her breathe like calmly, because she just didn't know that there was another option and or a better way. So that's the concept of the program in a nutshell. Let's see. Payroll. I'm going to touch on payroll for 1 second. Your duty is to make sure, if you like this concept, if this makes sense for your particular entity, your duty is going to fall on, you got to make sure the data gets to us. Well, we work with payroll companies. There's a lot of them in the world, whether you do it in-house, whether you farm it out somewhere else. Our job is to make sure that that data is seamlessly integrated and we can link up and connect up from a technology perspective just about with any payroll provider. So that part of this is an automated machine. And again, if you have interest in the program, we can talk about things like that. So Ed, I think I'm going to throw it back to you and to wrap up and to close. And if anybody has any thoughts and or comments, we can go from there.
Well, thanks, Mitch, and also Brody, Pete, and of course, George, I see it here as well. Let me just pause for a minute and check the chat and ask our participants if you have a question or a thought. If you want to come off mute, raise a question with these gentlemen, that would be great. So why don't we've quit the share. So questions, thoughts on the plan?
So Ed, I can throw out, I can start, and some of the questions that have come my way with some of the I've had a conversation actually this week with one of the chapters in Arizona, and there was, I don't want to say there was some confusion about the program. If you have a group program today, that you have a group delivered program through a traditional benefit plan, whether it's 403B or a 401k, this concept of pooling it, you would be a candidate for this program. If you're in CalPERS or things like that, this would not take the place of that. And so I wanted to make sure that part is clear.
Yeah.
From a design perspective, some things that have come up and come my way, there are other things that you can do inside these programs. And I use the word design very globally, because if you haven't looked at your program and how it's built and how it's structured with recent changes in the law and eligibility, and I'll leave you with this, another example. And actually this was one that George and I worked on together. Participation is a big deal in these. Can someone put their money into these programs out of their own pay? We met a chapter in Los Angeles, and when we met them, they had 0% participation, meaning nobody put money into the program at their own free will. We enter the scene, we talk about the concept, and I would say that 0 was not intentional. I would say it was unintentional, because the community was about 300 employees, and they just didn't know, Ed. They just didn't know. And so education and communication and design to me is the cornerstone of this. Now, personally and professionally, George and I, we have a level of care and passion for Head Start that is just, it's just extremely high. We've gotten to know the culture. We've gotten to know the people. We've gotten to know even the kids. We have a meeting in Arizona on March 21st to kind of showcase this program also, on a local basis as well. So Ed, I didn't mean to jump on questions, but those are things that have come my way just in the Head Start community in the time that I've been part of this.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you adding those illustrations to the conversation. And again, from the association standpoint, we are always searching for solutions that add value to local agencies, and we recognize about 40% of our programs are in school districts, county offices of education, government, cities, counties, etc. But there's a big group of our programs and some of our larger community-based programs that certainly are standalone and multi-purpose CBOs that certainly could participate in this and need these resources. So we're excited to have this partnership for that purpose. I don't see any questions, so I know we're rolling out lots of new information. As I shared at the front end of this, we are going to record this. We'll put this up on YouTube. We'll be passing this around, so everyone who participates in the call today will get a link. Lindsay, my associate, will make sure that goes out. And I think it's also a great time just to mention the two things that we have coming up for this community of interest. The first is March 21st in Phoenix, in coordination with our Early Childhood STEM Institute. We're going to be doing a local tour of some programs. So if you're an advisor on the call, please come to Phoenix, join us for the 21st, reach out to George and Mitch. They'll give you the details of that, but I know we would welcome a chance for you to see Head Start firsthand, understand the program dynamics, the staffing that we are looking to elevate. And then for the HR, for the Head Start folks on here who work in HR, I want to mention we have our HR network that is coming up April 8th, and that's going to be in Oakland Preservation Park. And Mitch and George don't know this yet, but I'm hoping to recruit one of you to be there that day in the afternoon in particular to continue this conversation. That day will be larger than just this topic. We'll be doing a regular network where we meet up other HR professionals looking at how the full enrollment initiative is impacting our work and other challenges in the HR space. So please consider attending April 8th or March 21st if you're an advisor in Phoenix. With that, I think, Mitch, we've got everything that we wanted to bring to the table. Certainly,
we do
appreciate everyone's time, your time, Brody's time, of course, George and Pete as well. So appreciative of the commitment you have to our community and look forward to seeing this develop and prosper.
Thank you, Ed. Good job, Lindsay.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
weekend.
day, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you, Lindsay.